Welcome back to Sister Scoop. We are covering the top 3 Marvel news topics for the week. And getting into our first one because it's Ironheart related, we are possibly going to be seeing Riri Williams in Doomsday or Secret Wars or both.
Yeah, so Dominique Thorne, as of course she's doing her promo for the show's release, basically was asked, hey, what do you think? And she basically hinted that it's a very, very real possibility that her character will be seen in one of those or both of those films, which is super exciting and also might hint at potentially the direction of her show and some of the characters that she may or may not be involved with or who could bring her in to that much larger battle.
Yeah, I think in this case, there's a lot to kind of add to it in the sense of one, there's a lot of characters that may be showing up that we've never seen before that are variants of characters we have seen before. So I do think there's a good chance there could be an Iron Man we're colliding with, which I think would be really cool for her character to kind of have a more direct passing of the torch than kind of that off-screen moment I think she had with RDJ, which was great, but I think having the on-screen moment would be just as powerful. But I do think, to your point, it kind of opens up the door of, hey, this show is actually going to be a lot more important than I think. I don't want to say we assumed, but I think fans in general were kind of thinking about, because there have been a lot of projects lately that have not really set characters up for their next project. So hopefully that means that the show now will do that. I do think the most recent trailer that dropped kind of really shifted what you thought the tone of the show was going to be. And that being said, I'm not really shocked anymore that she would be included in a Doomsday/Secret Wars, especially with the whole Clea coming and the incursions and all that. I'm not shocked anymore.
Yeah, and then, you think about who she is as a character and some of the people that she's involved with in the comics, being a champion and knowing that they're kind of playing with the Young Avengers and Champions and potentially using those interchangeably, and the rumor that the Young Avengers/Champions are going to be in Secret Wars and or Doomsday. It's like, okay, now I see the threads, of especially some of those really, really strong connections that we can make for her coming out of her show.
Yeah, and I think they waited really long to finally give her her own show after her initial appearance. So I'm glad to see that I don't say 100% no, but I'm glad to see that we can at least be even speculating about the fact that she could be in this movie instead of kind of sidelining her. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I'd much rather have a potential on the docket for her than have to wait another 3.5 years to see her again.
Exactly. There you go. See, on the same page. But moving on, this is Doomsday related, and I just want to make sure I pull it up so I say the right names. We kind of got the big five of Doomsday, and I'm honestly I'm shocked about two of them. Three of them I expected. I actually kind of want you to guess. Which three do you think I expected?
Easy. Reed, Doom, and Loki.
Correct.
Yeah.
But then we weirdly have Thor and Captain America. Now, hear me out on this. Thor, I actually feel like more prominently makes sense only because of Loki. So I get it. But I'm a little thrown off by Sam. Now, again, no hate towards Sam. I love Sam. We love our Captain America. And I understand maybe as the leader, that's kind of that role he's playing. But when you look at the names he's next to, not in the same bracket right here.
Well, it is interesting because I think when the one I was most surprised about was Thor, only because we had talked, I think, last Sister Scoop about how we have no idea what is going on with his character. He's a dad now. What is he going to do? Drag love along like this whole trip? That's a whole different, scenario. I think with Sam, you hinted at this. He's the leader of the, I'm going to use air quotes here, official Avengers. And we have been seeing a lot of rumors about, the Avengers and the new Avengers having this kind of side conflict within Doomsday and Secret Wars and all of that, which I think is way too busy. So I hope they nix that or nip that in the bud.
Yeah.
But if that's true, of course he's going to be prominent. Then the question becomes, who is the Thunderbolts counterpart that is missing off this list?
Yeah, I guess I'm starting to see Doomsday shatter into two directions by this list. And I guess my thought is I can see, again, it's because of Loki. That's what immediately I was like, okay, well, Thor doesn't completely throw me off just because there's his brother. The sun will shine on them again. Like, we've all been there. We've all been waiting for it.
We need the emotional payoff, now.
And so much of, I mean, I know Loki was in Infinity War for a total of 5 seconds, but like that moment and him losing his brother was arguably the last straw. He just lost all his people. Well, not all of them. Obviously, they go on to New Asgard who do live, but then he lost his brother. And we see that is what essentially causes Thor to decline and what becomes Endgame's version of Thor and everything else. So I love that they're hopefully bringing them back together in the final kind of whatever the big 2 of this phase or saga. I do think Thor is going to die. I think that's very poetic, unfortunately.
I think you're right. I don't. Where's Thor 5 then? I'm so confused.
I don't know. Well, that's last week's debate. It's still in question. But regardless, like, that's why he didn't shock me. I do think those are all your, like, not mystical, not even cosmic, but like these powerful entities that I could see going up against Doom. Then to your point, we do have this weird little side quest that seems to be the new Avengers versus the OG Avengers. I don't know. And like, I don't, whatever they're calling themselves, Avengers copyrighted. I don't know. But like, then we have that. And I do think that's its own, and that I see it. I understand that's where Sam fits there. But I guess from the grander scheme of things, I'm just kind of like, you stick out like a sore thumb when you have a god. You have 2 gods. You have a guy who's like not only extreme. Well, no, you have 2 extremely intelligent men who are also super powered, and one of them is going to dominate literally the universe. So this is weird. And also, what is happening in this movie now?
Yeah, I mean, you put 2 of the most intelligent people in all of Marvel Comics and 2 gods and Sam, and you're right. It is a little bit of a power difference, between him and the rest. I'll be so curious. I really hope they're not putting 2 different films into one. I worry about that a lot, knowing that the Russos had a hand in some of what happened in Brave New World and how critical we were of that plot and how much was happening. They managed to make it work in Infinity War, having the multiple locations and the multiple plots, but it was all feeding into one very clearly. And I'm afraid that they're trying to do something similar, but yet telling 2 very different stories. Hi, Gam. And
Gambit's making an appearance on the pod today.
My little favorite guest star. And so I think that's where I'm a little worried, is that they're trying to do a similar formula, but with a different end result. And that's where it gets a little hairy.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to see, but that's my main reason he stuck out like a sore thumb. Like, I just was like, the other 4 make sense in the plot of what I thought we were getting.
Yeah.
You make less sense depending on where we're going. So we'll see how that shakes out. But top 5 right there, we'll see how they do. I don't know. But speaking of Doomsday, we might have 2 Black Panthers.
I hate this. I do. I just give Shuri her chance to shine. That's where I'm concerned, and there's not 2 Black Panthers to my knowledge in Secret Wars, if I'm remembering the comic correctly. So it's not like even they're pulling directly from a comic precedence where, for example, there's a whole legion of Thors. You could have 15,000 Thors and be like, cool, that makes sense. That was in the comic.
Yep.
If for what I'm remembering, there's only 1 Black Panther. And of course, you can't have T'Challa. We all know that. But I am so frustrated by the inability to just like let her be the Captain America, the Black Panther.
Yeah.
So many mantles we're talking about today.
Yes.
But their inability to let her do that. I mean, introducing Kid T'Challa at the end, I thought was a great way to be like, we're going to bring back a T'Challa for everybody who loves that character. Great. Perfect. But yet him being a child allowed Shuri to still be the Black Panther in the moment. Even if we do, a time jump in the future, she would still likely get 1 more film, at least, of her having the spotlight. Bringing this in is a signal that they are not going to let her do that, because they're immediately going to find a way around recasting T'Challa, not do it for the 616, but bring in someone from another universe, which...
Yeah.
After, like, if you had done that in Black Panther 2, brought someone in from a different universe, that's one thing. But you made her Black Panther. Let her be Black Panther, period.
I mean, I honestly don't have much more to add to that because I think you just said everything I have to say. I really enjoyed Wakanda Forever, not just because of her. Honestly, like just the theme of it. Unfortunately, it was not the original theme, but I think they really talked about grief well. I think the entire thing with Namor and his whole group and everything else, I thought it was very interesting. It was a great movie, and I liked that they came to that conclusion with M'Baku, who was a great leader of his tribe, and Shuri, who didn't ever want to lead. That was never her intention. But I also really I just love Michael B. Jordan, but I
Yes.
loved that they also showed Shuri's kind of struggle between she's not 100% like her brother. And now her brother struggled a little bit with this as well because he saw the cracks of his father. But we could say T'Challa was a very, very good person.
Yeah. Extremely
Obviously,
noble. That's what he calls him in the end scene. He's
yes.
like, "Will you be noble like not the end scene, but the death scene?" Where he's like, "Will you be noble like your brother?" That's his defining trait.
Exactly. And then on the flip side, obviously, we had why am I blanking? Killmonger. I was like, hold on. I was going to call him Michael again. I said, no, that's all right. But, Eric is out here really showing the other side of that coin. And that's what makes that first movie so powerful. And so I thought it was amazing to sit there and kind of show that Shuri's a little bit of both. And
Yeah.
she brings that into the Black Panther that she is. And so I think if you're going to tell that story and that's the conclusion you come to, it is not fair to strip her away from that and to take it away. I mean, it's also comic book precedent. Like, she's been a Black Panther before. This is not new news. It wasn't just because this happened. So, I don't love it either. I think though we're going to see a lot of doubles in this movie. So maybe that's just some of it. Like if I played devil's advocate, maybe it's not the solution. It's just, hey, this is happening in this movie. Maybe it won't be a permanent solution. I don't know.
I would say that for any other character but this one.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. But
Yeah.
I'm just gonna try.
I like the hope, and like that will be my hope if there is two Black Panthers, but it makes me so nervy because of what has happened in the franchise.
Yeah. No, that's totally
Yeah.
fair. So that's another one we're gonna have to keep an eye out for as either more news comes out about it or anything else, or we see the movie. I mean, who knows? We could have no other word about it anywhere else. I think the Black Panther franchise in general, not just MCU, but Marvel across the board at the moment, is making some interesting choices. Even in the comics. So
Yeah,
we'll
lots of
see.
discussion on that one.
Yep, we'll see. But that has been this week's Sister Scoop. Join us again next week as we take on 3 more Marvel news topics. And as we start at the beginning of the episode, we are going into Ironheart, so we will be doing our full coverage of that on the pod, so keep an eye out. In the meantime, we'll see you guys next week. Bye.